I'm in Marvel, I'm Kamen Rider. Chapter 41. Fire. Following George Stacy's order, the policemen who arranged their formation immediately pressed the trigger on the undead jaguar. Tongues of fire immediately spit out towards the undead jaguar. Ding ding ding. The speed of the bullet was so much faster than the undead jaguar that it was hit by the bullet without reacting. Sparks burst out from the chest of the undead jaguar, and its body was beaten back quickly. It works. Increase the firepower and pay attention to the layout of the gun line. George looked at this scene with slight joy in his eyes. Even though the monster in front of him is not Ifa Enoch, if he can successfully kill it or capture it alive, it will be a big achievement. Under George's command, the police fired their guns from all directions, forcing the undead jaguar into a small street. The shops in the street have been closed one after another, and the pedestrians have disappeared, which is convenient for the police's operations. Humanity. The jaguar undead creature kept roaring, but because it was a low-level undead creature, it had certain language abilities and intelligence, but not much vocabulary. He could only express his anger with a low roar like a tiger or leopard. At the same time, it was also a little frightened. It didn't expect that human weapons could actually cause harm to it. Force it into the park area behind the street and kill or capture it there. George still had heavy weapons in his hands that were not used, and the armed helicopters in the sky were constantly circling, unable to find the moment to take action. Under the intertwined gun lines, the undead jaguar was forced to dodge everywhere, and the large net of intertwined firepower blocked its escape route. Forced by the gun lines, it came to the small park where it first appeared. The rocket launcher is ready. Helicopter fire suppression. Except for a dozen corpses, there was no one in the empty small park, and there were no buildings. George immediately ordered the heavy weapons to be activated. The two armed helicopters hovering in the sky opened fire immediately. Two 30mm machine gun bullets hit the body of the undead jaguar fiercely, followed by two RPG rounds. Boom. The body of the undead jaguar was immediately thrown away by the cannonball, rolling continuously on the ground like a rag bag, and finally hit the rockery in the small park, smashing the rockery directly. The whole person was dying and seemed to be about to die. Wait, don't go up yet. Something's not right. George originally wanted to catch him alive, but years of experience allowed him to discover anomalies in the undead creatures of the jaguar. The other party seems to be recovering quickly. How is it possible? How can it be possible to recover so quickly? Cold sweat broke out uncontrollably on George's forehead. Because the undead creature of the jaguar actually quickly climbed up from the ground and continued to liven up. The helicopter had to suppress it again. But George spent nearly half an hour with the undead jaguar. No matter what firepower he used, the opponent couldn't be killed. Several times, the opponent clearly entered a dying state, but quickly recovered. Fake. What the hell is this? George and the police officers at the scene broke out in cold sweat and felt tremendous pressure. Are you confused? Why can't it be killed? At this moment, a voice suddenly entered the ears of the police. Several people immediately turned their heads in panic. I saw a figure, who didn't know when it had appeared behind them. It's a ferocious monster wearing armor. It has a single horn on its head and insect-like scales on its body. It's an undead creature called the Great Halberd. There are monsters. George immediately exclaimed, turned the gun head, and pointed it at the undead creature in front of him. It's useless. Your weapons can't kill me at all. Because I'm an undead creature. The undead creature with a long halberd and a large pocket insect spoke coldly, with a hint of contempt in its tone. Undead. Upon hearing this new term, George and the police looked at me with expressions of disbelief. Then what do you want to do? George immediately gritted his teeth, suppressed his fear and panic, looked at the undead creature, and said, Humans, it seems that I haven't offended you, right? Why do you want to kill people at will? HMPH. Didn't you offend us? The undead creature with a long halberd and a large pocket insect raised the corners of its mouth and smiled disdainfully. You idiots, have you forgotten the ultimate war to this day? Where is your ancestor who won the last ultimate war? Didn't he tell you anything? What ancestor? What are you talking about? The ancestor of mankind, isn't that an ape? George frowned. Ha ha ha. Hearing George's words, the undead creature actually laughed. Just laugh. Then it spoke. It really makes me laugh. You actually think that your ancestors are apes. Oh, let me tell you miserable humans a fact. In fact, there are many creatures that did not evolve naturally on the earth, but were created at an accelerated pace by the gods. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the gods felt bored and experimentally created several species of creatures. From this, he felt the fun and created more creatures. Tens of thousands of years ago, the gods' pleasure in creating creatures diminished. In order to find more interesting things, he decided to let all creatures fight. The creature that wins in the end can become the master of the earth. But fighting means casualties. The gods did not want to see the death of the creatures they had worked so hard to create, so they chose 52 kinds of creatures and gave them powerful strength and immortality. This is the origin of undead creatures. After the undead creatures were born, the gods set a rule that every 10,000 years, 52 undead creatures must engage in an extreme battle. The final winner, he and his descendants can rule the earth for 10,000 years. In the last extreme battle, your ancestors, the human undead, won. But now, the 10,000-year period has arrived, and the extreme battle begins again. This time, you weak humans will never be able to win again. Quote. The words of the undead creature made the police at the scene stunned. And it's not just the police. Since reporters have already arrived at the live broadcast, many people watching the live broadcast heard the words of the undead creature, and the live broadcast room suddenly exploded. What is this? Gods. Undead. Am I watching live news or a science fiction movie? Today is not April Fool's Day, don't make such a joke. Is it a joke or is it true? Is there really a God in this world? It's over, my worldview has collapsed. People watching the live news in front of the TV or on their mobile phones felt a turmoil in their hearts. Are you lying? The origin of human beings is obviously evolution. This is the conclusion reached by countless human scientists after research. Do you think you can deceive us? George Stacy listened to the words of the undead creature with a look of disbelief. But judging from the special influence factor he contributed to Lin Wusheng, his heart has begun to waver. After all, the other party is such a big monster, so there is no need to lie to him. Ha! Keep deceiving yourself and others. You guys just won an extreme battle by luck. This time, you will lose in the extreme battle. A cold glint flashed in the eyes of the undead creature. Let this most prosperous city of mankind be the beginning of our new extreme war. We will declare war on mankind. Come out and kill humans. Feel free to kill them all. Quote. As soon as the voice of the undead creature with the halberd and the large pocket insect fell, I saw bursts of crying for fathers and mothers suddenly erupted in various streets in Brooklyn. One after another, hideous and terrifying bodies appeared from all over the streets, killing humans wantonly. If you look closely, you can see that there are actually 5 undead creatures. Call for help from the army. George Stacy looked at this scene, his eyes suddenly splitting. Regardless of whether he knew these people or not, he still felt enough anger when he saw them being killed wantonly by the undead creatures. It seems that you are their leader. If we deal with you, this group of human warriors should fall apart. Well, although you are weak guys, you are not worthy of the word warrior. The undead creature with a long halberd and a large pocket insect took a step forward and strode towards George. In its hand, a long-handled sword suddenly appeared. This sword is almost exactly the same as the sword of Spade King Nanyang Caucasus Big Bug Undead Creature. This is because Sequence Ace and Sequence King are of the same kind and different types, with similar appearance and abilities. However, King-level undead creatures can transform into human form. The strength of the ability is much stronger. The undead creature with a long halberd and a large pocket insect brandished a long-handled sword and attacked George. It is like an ancient general, with a terrifying momentum. Ding ding ding. And the defensive power of its body is obviously much stronger than that of the undead jaguar. Bullets that are effective against the undead jaguar will have almost no effect if they hit the black armor on its body. Click. The undead creature with a long halberd and a large pocket insect came in front of George. He raised his sword and lowered it at a terrifying speed. Director, step back and leave it to me. And just when George thought he was going to die, a young police officer pulled him aside. The long-handled sword split the police car behind George into 2 halves, but George was unscathed. Thank you, Wolf. George immediately looked at the police officer in front of him gratefully. The other person is blonde and handsome. He is a young policeman who has just joined the New York Police Department. His name is Wolf, which means wolf. Director, retreat quickly, you can't die. Leave this to me. Wolf stood in front of the undead creature, the great halberd, and fired rapidly at the opponent with the large caliber gun in his hand. Barely slowing down the pace of the undead creature called the great halberd. What about you? George was worried. I'm fine. You can't die. You are the backbone of the New York Police Department. Don't worry, I'm very flexible. George was so moved that he didn't expect to have such a loyal subordinate. He vowed that if neither he nor Wolf were sacrificed this time, he would make an exception and promote Wolf. George turned around and ran, but the undead creature with a long halberd and a large halberd narrowed its eyes and looked at Wolf in front of him, seeming to have seen something. HMPH. The undead and I are at odds with each other. Wolf's eyes flashed with cunning eyes, but his words were righteous. This scene was recorded by reporters, and many viewers were immediately moved and admired Wolf's integrity. The undead creatures such as the halberd and the giant halberd immediately began to chase Wolf. The two of them were chasing each other, and the scene was very thrilling. But the most critical thing is the rest of Brooklyn. 5 undead creatures are causing carnage in different neighborhoods. The one who seemed to be the most powerful was a red undead creature with 2 horns and insect wings. It's the Ace of Diamonds, a catalpa-shaped insect undead creature. It holds 2 large swords and can easily split steel and reinforced concrete. It rushed into residential buildings, causing killings one after another. The other 4 undead creatures should not be underestimated. The locust undead creature has extremely strong jumping ability and amazing kicking power. It can easily kick a running person into the wall and turn it into a mixture of flesh and blood. The undead bats kept swooping down in the air, grabbing each human being, biting their necks to suck out their blood, and then throwing their bodies down. The cobra undead creature sprayed venom wantonly on the streets. Its venom could even corrode concrete and emit yellow-green smoke. People who were not corroded by the venom immediately fell to the ground when they smelled the smoke. The attack method of the wild boar undead creature is even more brutal and brutal. It uses the serrations and spikes on its body as weapons to carry out rampage, knocking each human to pieces, twisting the body, and flying flesh and blood. The entire Brooklyn area seems to have become a hell on earth. It is no longer within the control of the police. Fortunately, the army has arrived quickly. There is a U.S. military camp near New York. I saw armored vehicles, tanks, and armed helicopters quickly driving to the scene of the incident, and thousands of U.S. troops, fully armed and carrying personnel carriers, arrived. Fake. The streets are all blocked. But the streets he went to were blocked by people fleeing. It is also unknown how many people were trampled to death due to crowding. Order the soldiers to clear a road quickly. Major Tarbot. Air Force Lieutenant General Thaddeus E. Ross was sitting on an Apache helicopter gunship, looking at the situation below, frowning and giving orders. A man with short hair and a mustache and a standard American appearance immediately got off the armored vehicle. He led his soldiers and spent a lot of effort to evacuate the crowd on one side of the street. And the people on the ground were basically not breathing. Some were trampled to death, while others were suffocated. Seeing this scene, everyone was speechless. However, the army has no time to pay attention to the tragic situation here. They need to deal with the undead creatures as soon as possible, otherwise the situation on the scene will be even worse. The armored vehicle finally approached, and the armed helicopter had also arrived on the battlefield. Heavily armed soldiers have also arrived at their designated positions. A battle is imminent. Fire. General Ross gave an order, and tanks, armored vehicles, fighter jets, and armed helicopters all opened fire separately. A large number of cannonballs quickly blasted at the undead creatures. It seems that the army has no time to take care of the surviving people in the area and only wants to stop the undead creatures as soon as possible. Under the command of General Ross, armed helicopters, tanks, armored vehicles, and thousands of soldiers were divided into 5 locations and opened fire. Suddenly, overwhelming artillery fire completely occupied half of Brooklyn. Every undead creature was shrouded in gunfire. Boom. Streets were completely destroyed, and every human and undead creature disappeared in the impact of the artillery fire. You idiots, what are you doing? There are tens of thousands of people here, what are you doing? Why don't you suppress the undead creatures first and then evacuate the residents? When George Stacy saw this, his eyes turned red. He angrily came to an armored car and questioned the colonel in front of him. You are the chief of the police department. Let me tell you, compared to the value of these undead creatures, these tens of thousands of people are nothing. This is a slum in Brooklyn, and the people in it are of little value. The colonel replied arrogantly. You policemen, just watch from the side. Watch how we arrest the undead creatures. Watch and learn. After saying that, the colonel led the army and pressed forward, leaving George aside. George was shaking with anger, but there was nothing he could do. They could only watch as the army marched into the streets that were reduced to ruins. Solve it. The colonel led his people to the ruins and stood ready. He doesn't care about the corpses of ordinary people. All he cared about was the undead jaguar on this street. If you can capture an undead creature and present it to General Ross, you will definitely receive a large reward. With a smile on his face, the colonel looked longingly at the street in front of him, waiting for the smoke to dissipate. However, the moment the smoke disappeared, his smile completely froze on his face. He saw a slightly embarrassed but almost intact figure looking at him coldly, with a predator-like expression on his face. It's okay. Fire. Fire quickly. The arrogant colonel was somewhat blinded by his trust in thermal weapons. He didn't care at all about the title of undead creature, thinking that it was just blown by an ignorant person. How can there be gods in the world? How could there be an unkillable creature? God, how many divisions does he have? But looking at the undead jaguar in front of him, he felt that his knowledge was broken. However, as a colonel, his ability to adapt to changes is still very outstanding, and he quickly asked the soldiers to shoot. Just when he was about to let the soldiers set fire for the second time. Swish! The figure of the jaguar undead creature suddenly disappeared from the place. Where did it go? Find it quickly. Don't let it escape. Get ready and watch your surroundings. When did you come to me? The colonel anxiously issued instructions while vigilantly observing the traces of the undead jaguar. Suddenly, the hairs on his hair exploded. A pair of fierce eyes appeared in front of him instantly. There is uncontrollable killing intent in his eyes. It's over. This was the colonel's last thought. Swish. Claws flashed. Wow. A pillar of blood rose into the sky. The colonel's head flew into the air and then fell to the ground. It's over. The colonel is dead. Run. The undead creatures are too strong. Fake. We have to deal with such a powerful guy, isn't it going to cost us our lives? As soon as the colonel died, the remaining American troops immediately threw off their armor and turned around and ran away. So as the reporter recorded the entire process, this part of the army actually threw away their armored vehicles and various firearms and artillery, turned around and fled. What is the 2nd Battalion doing? You actually dare to be deserters, I will shoot you, no one will be spared. General Ross gritted his teeth as he watched this scene from the helicopter. The whole battalion collapsed, which was a slap in the face. But he couldn't care so much at this time, because the power of the undead was beyond the army's imagination. The wild boar undead creatures, bat undead creatures, locust undead creatures, and cobra undead creatures were okay. The abilities of these creatures were still within the check and balance range of the army and could be suppressed by firepower. However, ace-level undead creatures such as catalpa-shaped undead creatures and long-halberd undead creatures require a lot of firepower to check and balance. However, the frighteningly fast jaguar undead creature can only be restricted to a certain area. Help us, please. Who can come and save us? Oh God. Someone come and save us. What made General Ross upset was that there were actually many living residents in the neighborhood in front of him. Thousands of people, say more or less. What should we do? General Ross, there are still so many people inside. Looking at this scene, Major Talbot immediately contacted General Ross. What else can we do? Keep bombing. This world is originally about the jungle. Only the strong can survive. If they are not strong enough, they will have no choice but to die. General Ross was distraught and decided to go all the way to the dark side. Although after this incident broke out, he would definitely be criticized in various ways. But as long as these undead creatures are captured, someone in the army will definitely keep his position. Keep bombing. Hurry. Under General Ross's ironclad order, no matter how unwilling Major Tarbert and others were, they could not disobey the military order and had no choice but to open fire. One after another, the cannonballs enveloped all the undead creatures and surviving people. Oh my god. The army is going to kill us completely. You're going to hell. The eyes of those who survived were filled with despair, and their eyes were covered by the missiles in the sky. And just then, I saw silhouettes flying quickly in the sky, and then condensed in the sky, forming a big net. Boom boom boom. The missiles exploded on the large net, blowing these figures into pieces, but saving the people underneath. It's Examagia. There are so many Examagia. Look, it's Locust Man. Locust Man is here to save us. Thank you, Locust Man. Looking at the yellow figure who kicked away the cannonball that almost fell on her head, an old woman showed gratitude. Please call me Kamen Rider, ma'am. Okay, Locust Man. Lin Wusheng shook his head helplessly, and with a wave of his arm, a large number of security Examagia rushed to the scene and quickly suppressed several undead creatures. Kamen Rider Barkan and Kamen Rider Valkyrie have also arrived at the scene and are fighting against the two aces. Lin Wusheng, on the other hand, looked at General Ross in the sky. Swish. He jumped onto the Apache helicopter and dragged it to the ground. Jerome, what do you want to do? Looking at Lin Wusheng's oppressive body, General Ross was angry and scared. Ross, look at the good things you've done. Lin Wusheng's face was filled with righteous indignation. He picked up General Ross's collar and said angrily. You actually ignore so many civilians here and dare to use heavy weapons indiscriminately. You guy, what do you think of life? General Ross was yelled at by Lin Wusheng. He was originally very angry, but when he saw Lin Wusheng's scarlet eyes, he felt a chill down his back, as if he was being targeted by some ferocious predator. Even through a layer of armor, General Ross could feel the undisguised murderous intent in the opponent's eyes. You troops, stop from now on. Leave the scene to me. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. Lin Wusheng looked at General Ross coldly, as if he was warning something. You actually dare to threaten me. You, an Asian monkey who came out of nowhere, dare to warn me. How dare you? General Ross gritted his teeth, but did not dare to say anything. He didn't speak for a long time, seemingly acquiescing to Lin Wusheng's behavior. Lin Wusheng then put down his collar, snorted coldly, turned around and left. Give me. Seeing Lin Wusheng leave, General Ross wanted to directly order the army to fire on Lin Wusheng, but when the words came to his lips, he could not say them out. Am I scared? It's ridiculous, how could he scare me? I'm an Air Force general. The reason why I didn't choose to open fire was just because he did protect the people. That's it. Quote. General Ross's heart was filled with activity. In the end, he said nothing or did nothing. He just watched Lin Wusheng's next actions. The army did not dare to take any action, but just watched Jerome's intelligent men and undead creatures fighting. On the battlefield at this time, Kamen Rider Barkan is entangled with the undead creatures of the Catalpa insects, and Kamen Rider Valkyrie is also fighting with the undead creatures of the Catalpa insects. Some of the Humagia were evacuating the crowd, while others were stepping forward to surround the undead creatures. However, the gap between ordinary Humagia and undead creatures was a bit large, and each Humagia was quickly destroyed. And Lin Wusheng's figure quickly arrived in front of the undead creature. Under the pressure of the Humagias, the remaining 5 undead creatures had basically gathered in one place. Lin Wusheng held the briefcase king sword and entered with a heavy chop. During this process, he used the leaping locust form for a while, and the biting shark, flying falcon, flaming tiger, frozen polar bear, destructive mammoth, etc., which can be regarded as the basic form. Every time you switch forms, a lot of influence factors will be harvested. It seems that people really like this. Several undead creatures were chopped to the ground with sparks all over their bodies, but they showed no signs of being eliminated. If it is stagnant for more than half a minute, if there is no seal, it will resume normal actions and repeat this process over and over again. It's really an immortal creature. Seeing this scene, Lin Wusheng was also in trouble. It seemed that there was nothing he could do with a few undead creatures. There are still these things in the world. But forget it, let's catch them all first. Lin Wusheng gave the order. I saw several huge mechanical airships appearing in the sky not far away. The door of the airship opened, and Humagia descended from the sky one after another, bringing with them a large number of cages made of special materials. One by one, the undead creatures were locked in the cage. Their sharp blades and toxins were unable to destroy the cage, and in the end they could only curse in the cage, and were then carried away by the Humagias. What? Humans actually have weapons like yours? When the undead creatures such as the long halberd worm and the catalpa-shaped insect saw this, they were immediately surprised. Looking at each other, the two ace undead creatures suddenly wanted to retreat. Their appearance this time was originally intended to let humans understand how powerful they are and to put humans under the terror of the undead. Now that the goal has been achieved and all low-level undead creatures have been captured, there is no point in continuing. The two ace undead creatures were immediately ready to drive away the two common riders and then escape. You want to leave? Unexpectedly, Russell looked angry. You have caused so much murder and you just want to get away. There is no way. Russell whined, threw away the shooting sublimation device, and then fought hand-to-hand towards the undead creature with the halberd and the halberd. Are you crazy? Dare you trade wounds with an undead creature? The undead creature of the great halberd was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Russell to be so stupid as to engage in melee combat with an undead creature like it. As long as I can catch you, I will do anything. Russell pounced on the undead creature like a wild wolf. Then he just bites the bullet and doesn't let go. Although he is a werewolf, he has a normal human heart. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Russell's eyes were red. He must make these superior undead creatures pay the price. The undead creature with a long halberd and a large pocket insect is entangled by Russell. His strength is one level higher than the basic form of Kamen Rider Barkan, but facing the opponent's lifeless attack, he can't get out of the battle at all. It kept swinging the long-handled sword, slashing Russell's body. There were varying degrees of damage on Barkan's armor. But Russell refused to give in and launched an attack on the undead creature of the Great Halberd and the Great Pocket Bug, preventing the other party from escaping. His body was constantly injured, and there was blood seeping out of the armor. Looking at this scene, everyone couldn't help but feel moved. Agent Hill was even more ashamed. He was getting the same salary and doing the same job, but the other party was working so hard. She also looked at the undead catalpa-shaped insect with burning eyes and began to gallop. The shooting sublimator in her hand kept firing to prevent the undead catalpa-shaped insect from escaping. Breaking impact. Destructive impact. Russell finally waited for Lin Wusheng's support. Lin Wusheng's kick, which destroyed the mammoth form, quickly penetrated the body of the undead creature, and the opponent immediately fell into stasis. Humagia, who had been waiting for a long time, swarmed forward and immediately locked the undead creature of the Great Halberd into a cage. Lin Wusheng took action again and captured the undead catalpa-shaped insects, and then looked at Russell who was lying on the ground to rest. Why are you working so hard? There was a trace of anger and concern in Lin Wusheng's eyes. Your life is much more important than the undead. We can't let them escape, otherwise more people will die. Isn't that what you said? The existence of Kamen Rider is to protect everyone. This is the meaning of Kamen Rider's existence. But he saw Russell removed his armor and lying on the ground covered in blood, but he showed a happy smile. I didn't have the ability to protect my companions before, so I could only watch them being killed by hunters, but now in order to protect humans, I am willing to use my last bit of strength. Seeing Russell's determined look, Lin Wusheng was also a little moved. Russell is indeed a little fool. Not only were my parents killed by hunters, but my companions were also killed by hunters. I have been looking for information about my own clan, but all I found were monsters from other clans. I finally made friends with monsters from other clans, but ended up being hunted down by the Bloodstone clan. Now the humanoid is probably the other person's only friend. No wonder Russell was so angry about the wanton killing. Okay, take him for treatment. Search the scene carefully. There may be people alive. Lin Wusheng ordered the medical-type exomagia on the side. In addition to the thousands of security Humagias he brought with him, there were also several complete medical Humagia teams, whose role was to rescue injured residents. Several exomagia immediately carried Russell into the medical cabin on the side. Although Russell's self-healing ability is very strong, he still has to work hard. The rest of the Humagias continued to search the scene, and soon, they unearthed seriously injured people from under the rubble. Dad, wake up. Please. You successfully influenced kick-ass Dave Leshevsky and obtained 200 special influence factors. But a cry coming from the ruins made Lin Wusheng slightly surprised. He turned his head and looked to the side. I saw a boy about 16 years old, holding the body of a middle-aged man, sobbing continuously. Although his appearance at this time was very green, Lin Wusheng also recognized his face. He is the future kick-ass, a superhero with no superpowers and very poor skills. Learn to face it, boy. Lin Wusheng thought for a while, walked to the other person's side, and patted Dave's back gently. Locust Man. When he saw Lin Wusheng walking up to him, a hint of surprise suddenly appeared on Dave's sad face, and he said excitedly. Locust Man, I'm your fan. No, Mr. Kamen Rider 01. No, Mr. Jerome. Well, let's call you Kamen Rider. Dave's words were incoherent, which also showed his inner excitement at the moment. Is this your father? Sorry, he seems to have passed away. Lin Wusheng looked at the body of Dave's father on the ground and scanned it. There were indeed no vital signs. And there are no signs of mutating into Orpheus Enoch, so he is definitely dead. A look of grief came over Dave's face. He now only has his father as a relative, and now that his father dies, he becomes a complete orphan. You have to learn to face it, you. When Lin Wusheng wanted to say something, his eyes narrowed. He saw a large amount of blood on Dave. The blood stains were carefully identified and were eroded from the inside to the outside of the clothes. In other words, 99% of them were Dave's own blood. With so much blood, there was no way Dave was alive. Wow. While Dave was crying while holding his father's body, bits of quicksand fell. Lin Wusheng took a deep breath and immediately knew what happened to Dave. It seems that this future kick-ass really has superpowers. I was watching a baseball game with my dad, and suddenly there was a noise outside, saying that a monster was attacking. So my father took me, and he took me to go out. Suddenly the explosion happened, and when I woke up, my dad was already. Dave sobbed while telling Lin Wusheng about today's experience. Lin Wusheng stood quietly beside him, because the young man needed someone to talk to. When Dave finished crying and came to his senses, he firmly turned his head and looked at Lin Wusheng. Mr. Jerome, I also want to be a superhero. Can I become your disciple? Young man, although I sympathize with your situation, I still have to tell you one thing. When you want to be a hero, you have already lost the qualification to be a hero. Lin Wusheng just looked at Dave and shook his head. The other party is different from Russell and Hill. Dave has no belief in fighting and no fighting qualities. He can't bear any set of Kamen Rider armor. Maybe the other party can take on the responsibility of the Kamen Rider in the future, but for him now, Lin Wusheng had better refuse. After hearing Lin Wusheng's words, Dave wanted to defend himself. But he suddenly felt desperate and found that he had no capital to refute. Indeed, as Lin Wusheng said, he was not qualified to be a hero. He just immerses himself in the fantasy of superhero comics every day, so who is he? He is just a weakling who has no strength, is not handsome, and has no talent. I understand. Dave nodded, looking a little lonely. He let go of his father's hand and watched as the other man was carried away by the two examagia. He stood blankly among the ruins, the setting sun lengthening his shadow. In the crowd of shadows, he lowered his head, not outstanding. Lin Wusheng looked at him, nodded, and then walked away. He thought that the other party would turn into Enoch or something in a hurry, but it seemed that the other party did not. Brooklyn, New York, was suddenly attacked by undead creatures. The army bombed the neighborhood, causing tens of thousands of casualties. What exactly are undead creatures? Do gods really exist? The undead attack New York, the police are useless, the army is ridiculous, Kamen Rider saves New York. Jerome Lin angrily scolded the Air Force general. What do you think of life? In the evening, various news about undead creatures occupied the headlines of major media. Various forces and countries have begun heated discussions on this matter. The appearance of the undead is undoubtedly a punch to this seemingly normal world. In particular, what the undead creature of the Halberdici said in the video about the origin of the undead creature and the extreme battle triggered intense and widespread discussions. Many people believe that everything said by the undead creatures of the halberd worm is a lie, which simply subverts a large number of research views in the biological world. But there are also many people who believe what the undead said and begin to worry about the future of human society. But no matter what, the existence of undead creatures has been confirmed. In the picture, the various undead creatures are unable to die under the shooting of the army and the attacks of the common riders, which makes most people believe that there is indeed an unkillable creature in this world. This has also given rise to some twisted thoughts among many people who are afraid of death. What if the cells of undead creatures were extracted and implanted into the human body? So, can humans also acquire this immortal characteristic? Rubber-san, have you seen the news? The undead have attacked New York. Thousands of people have died in Brooklyn. In the Stark Industries weapons research base, Tony Stark looked a little unhappy. Seeing the tragic situation in Brooklyn, he couldn't help but worry. If this attack was in Manhattan, then the Stark Industries building would most likely be within the attack range. Pepper, Obadiah and others he cares about in the building will definitely be affected as well. So Tony felt a little anxious and wanted to quickly create weapons that could deal with the undead. I saw it. I didn't expect these guys to be so arrogant and dare to attack human cities directly. Heavenly King Lu Boshi gritted his teeth and seemed to be very angry at the attack by the undead creatures. What's going on with the research on the lizard undead? Tony looked at King Lu Boshi. In the past few days since his return, he has been busy dealing with various problems of Stark Industries. He is also upgrading Mark's armor, and the research on undead creatures has been left to King Lu Boshi. Tianwang Lu Boshi also opened a new board branch in New York with Tony's help. I extracted some cells from the undead lizards. They were not very active. On the contrary, they lost their activity immediately after being separated from the undead lizards. So I speculate that their immortality has nothing to do with their body composition, but may be related to some mysterious power. Quote. Tianwang Lu Boshi showed all the results of his research these days in front of Tony. Tony took the information and couldn't help but be a little surprised. I was surprised by the scientific rigor of Tianwang Lu Boshi. Although he has little exposure to biology, he is still very clear about whether scientific research is done well. The other party is indeed the top life scientist in the world. So, what do you suspect that force is? Is it some kind of energy, or some kind of specific substance? Tony looked through the information in his hand and frowned. The difficulty of researching undead creatures seems a bit high. I don't know. I only know that it will take years and months to figure it out with my team alone. Tianwang Lu Boshi sighed, looked at Tony and said. Maybe we need to recruit some scientists to join us. Is that so? But there are not many top life scientists in the world. Let me think about it, there are some. Tony's eyes lit up, as if he thought of someone's existence. This person can definitely do it. Who is it? Tony just smiled and said nothing. Undead creatures are also immortal. An antique shop on the streets of Manhattan, New York. In the basement filled with various chemical instruments, the immortal forensic Dr. Henry Morgan watched the news broadcast and was slightly moved. What does the undead have to do with the secrets in me? Henry rubbed his eyebrows gently. Ever since he was shot and fell into the water by the owner of a ship transporting slaves 200 years ago, he has gained the ability to live forever. Each time he is killed, his body disappears and reappears in the waters of Manhattan Harbor. For the past 200 years, he has been studying the secrets of himself, but to no avail. Now that he saw an undead creature with the same immortality as himself, he immediately became interested. But, there is still something different. Henry quickly shook his head. The immortality of undead creatures means that they will not be killed at all, while their own immortality means that they can be resurrected intact after being killed. The two kinds of immortality have different meanings. Henry could only fall asleep quietly without any results. You successfully influenced Thunderbolt General Thaddeus E. Ross and obtained 100 special influence factors. You successfully influenced George Stacy and obtained 100 special influence factors. You successfully influenced Iron Man Tony Stark and obtained 100 special influence factors. You successfully influenced Nick Fury and obtained 100 special influence factors. You succeeded. Jerome Manor at night. Lin Wusheng was holding a wine glass, and the record player next to him was playing TV bands, Moon of Canopy. While sipping the wine, Lin Wusheng checked his system panel to get an overview of his harvest. Host. Lin Wusheng. Age. 21. Game level. 323,650 50,000ths. Unlocked Kamen Rider Illustrated Book. Kamen Rider 01 First Level Kamen Rider 555 First Level Kamen Rider Sword First Level. Ability. Humagia Manufacturing Technology, Undead Divine Power. Items. Fedian 01 Driver, High Leaping Locust Program Sublimation Key, Bite Shark Program Sublimation Key, Frozen Polar Bear Program Sublimation Key, Blazing Tiger Program Sublimation Key. Attendance. Izzy, Satellite Z, Murakami Kiyachi, Tenwang Hiroshi, Wolf Spider Undead 5/9. General Impact Factor. 22,175,239. Special Impact Factor. 29,650. With the continuous appearances of undead creatures and Ifa Enoch, his influence factor has accumulated to a considerable amount. In particular, the appearance of undead creatures has been making headlines in the news for days, triggering large-scale discussions and bringing sufficient impact to the world. Stop saying anything and just upgrade to Kamen Rider 01. Lin Wusheng did not hesitate and directly started to upgrade the Kamen Rider 01 illustrated book. The second level has 8,000 special impact factors, and the third level has 12,000 special impact factors. Lin Wusheng unlocked the second level first. The moment the second level was unlocked, there were suddenly many more things in the system mall. Kamen Rider 01 has two forms unlocked, one is the Shining Assault Locust and the other is the Metal Cluster Locust. Kamen Rider Barkan unlocks the Furious Gatling form. There's also Kamen Rider Shun's Burning Falcon form. As for the new Kamen Riders, they have unlocked Kamen Rider 001, Kamen Rider Type, Kamen Rider Senki, Kamen Rider Thunder, and Kamen Rider Death. Of course, there is another one, Kamen Rider Abaddon. What satisfied Lin Wusheng the most was Kamen Rider Abaddon. This is a mass-produced knight that comes in two specifications and can be sold as a commodity. But that's all for the second level. What Lin Wusheng is looking forward to the most is the third level. After unlocking the third level and seeing the products on the third level, Lin Wusheng was a little excited. Everything in the world of Kamen Rider 01 has been opened to him. Locusts from Hell. Japanese Wolf. Lone Wolf. Sabertooth of Justice. The final forms such as the Yak Scorpion have appeared one after another. In addition, Kamen Rider 02, Akko 01, Akko 0, Akko 1, Eden, Lucifer, Thunder of Destruction, Zaya, Akko Chiki and other Kamen Riders have been unlocked. In particular, there were two Kamen Riders that Lin Wusheng had never expected. That is, Lin Wusheng's attention was basically attracted by the two figures on the third floor. One is called Kamen Rider Goodwill and can use the power of all the righteous Kamen Riders. If Lin Wusheng didn't think too much about this, he probably wouldn't be able to use it if he made it. The second one is called Kamen Rider Ragnarok. This Kamen Rider, if Lin Wusheng remembers correctly, appeared in the American comic, Kamen Rider 01. He is a villain knight who can continuously evolve and has unlimited potential. The strength of these two Kamen Riders is not weak, and they may bring a lot of convenience to Lin Wusheng. Especially Kamen Rider's kindness, the opponent's power level is very high, and he is also a boss in this American comic universe. However, Lin Wusheng took a closer look and found that the system settings were very misleading. Kamen Rider Goodwill can only use the powers of Kamen Rider that he has unlocked. In other words, the more Kamen Riders of Justice he unlocks, the stronger the Kamen Rider's Goodwill will be. The Kamen Rider's Goodwill and ordinary influence factor price of up to 50 million also persuaded Lin Wusheng to quit. After thinking about it, he changed to a Yak satellite and a Zaya satellite first. Both satellites have an ordinary impact factor of 10 million. Then there were only more than 2 million left. At this time, Lin Wusheng discovered another deceptive thing. That is, the Kamen Rider cannot jump levels and change forms. For example, in Kamen Rider 01, you must first change the Shining Assault Locust before you can change the Metal Cluster Locust. In Kamen Rider Barkan, you need to change to Assault Wolf first, and then you can change to Furious Gatling. Obviously strong buying and selling. There are nearly 10,000 special influence factors. Which one should you unlock? Lin Wusheng looked at the panel. Unlocking the next Kamen Rider World Picture book requires a special influence factor of 10,000, and Lin Wusheng is still short of 300. Unlocking the second level of Kamen Rider 555 and Kamen Rider Sword requires special influence factors. So Lin Wusheng took a closer look at the second-tier products of Kamen Rider 555 and Kamen Rider Sword. Unlike Kamen Rider 01, Kamen Rider 555 and Kamen Rider Kengo only have 2 levels in total. After unlocking the second level, all the products are released. The second level of Kamen Rider 555 includes Afi Enoch King, Rhino Afi, Kamen Rider Earth Emperor, Kamen Rider Heaven Emperor, touchscreen versions of Faiz and Caesar, etc. On the second level of Kamen Rider Sword, there are Joker Undead Creature, Emperor Sword, Albino Clown, Evil God 14, Hell 3-Headed Dog, etc. It seems that the power level of Kamen Rider Sword is still higher, so Lin Wusheng chose to unlock the second level of Kamen Rider Sword. But now he can't afford to change anything. The 2 satellites cost him more than 1 million ordinary impact factors, and then he bought some new Kamen Riders and new form props in the Kamen Rider Mall. Now he only has more than ordinary impact factors left. Draw a lottery and try your luck. Lin Wusheng looked at the lottery system that he rarely used. 1,000 ordinary impact factors can be drawn once. It has almost everything except the Kamen Rider picture book. There are even powerful followers like Haishin and Bai Ya. However, Lin Wusheng drew hundreds of thousands before, all of which were junk. He was so angry that he didn't touch the lottery button again for a long time. Now Lin Wusheng felt that he might be lucky, so he was ready to try his luck again. Start the lottery. 1,000 ordinary impact factors disappear quickly. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained Discmon Akane X1 from the world of Kamen Rider Hibiki. Lin Wusheng looked at Kamen Rider Hibiki's first-level mall. Although he couldn't redeem it, he also saw that a Discmon only had an ordinary impact factor of 100, which was equivalent to a loss of 900. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained 1 ordinary coin from Kamen Rider U. Lin Wusheng was even more speechless. An ordinary coin was worth 10 ordinary impact factors. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained a pair of tomorrow's underwear from Eiji Hino from Kamen Rider U. Quote. What do I need these underwear for? Lin Wusheng was so disgusted that he threw the colorful underwear aside. Congratulations, you successfully obtained the Sound Gun Sword Shiyan from Kamen Rider Holy Blade. Sound Gun Sword Shiyan. Lin Wusheng's mind instantly flashed to the scene of Dokkan Temple crying bitterly while holding the Sound Gun and Sword Shiyan. Sound Gun Sword Shiyan is not bad, but it does not unlock the Kamen Rider Holy Blade illustrated book, and there is no fantasy control book. Only the Sound Gun Sword Shiyan can't do much. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained the full comic bottle from Kamen Rider Build, ×1. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained the Disc Beast Green Great Ape X1 from the world of Kamen Rider Hibiki. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained Magma Memory X1 from Kamen Rider W. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained the Sagittarius Star Disciple Switch X1 from Kamen Rider Forze. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained Ant Lord X1 from Kamen Rider Yahida. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained Narumi Shokuchi's top hat from Kamen Rider W, ×1. Congratulations, you successfully obtained Haruto's favorite donut ×1 from Kamen Rider Wizard. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained Aguilera original stockings from Kamen Rider Levi's, ×1. All kinds of rags flashed in front of Lin Wusheng, and finally, at the moment when the ordinary impact factor bottomed out. Congratulations, you have successfully obtained an Amazon cell from Kamen Rider Amazons. This is okay. Lin Wusheng's eyes lit up while playing with the stockings in his hands. With Amazon cells, a large number of rice dumplings can be grown. Putting granny rice dumplings in the city can also help him earn a lot of impact factors. However, it still needs to be arranged. Lin Wusheng reluctantly collected the stockings, and then started his own plan. Now, he only needs to accumulate a large amount of ordinary impact factors. A few days later. Midtown High School. Lin Cheng, good morning. Good morning, Peter, Ned. 4 figures gathered at the school gate. Within a few days, Lin Lai, Chung, Peter, and Ned became one with each other. Of course, besides the 4 of them, there is another person. You 4, why don't you wait for me? Gwen Stacy held 5 servings of coffee in her hand, handed it over, and said angrily. Ahem, thanks, Gwen. Peter looked at Gwen a little cautiously. The other 3 people took the coffee while talking and laughing. Peter and Gwen were ostracized by the rest of the school because of Missy's incident, but unexpectedly made friends with Lin Lai and Chung. Lin Lai and Chung also felt that Peter and Gwen had much better personalities than the rest of the school. Today we have an internship class, we are going to Osborne Enterprise to study. The 5-person group waited leisurely in the parking lot while drinking the coffee Gwen brought. After drinking it reluctantly, Peter couldn't bear to throw down the cup, because it was the first thing Gwen bought for herself. Osborne Enterprises, how is this enterprise? Lin Lai and Chung looked slightly moved and couldn't help but ask. Among the world's top 500 companies, it ranks more than 300. It is the 3rd largest arms dealer in the United States, and it is very prominent in the field of biotechnology. However, the disadvantage is that the industry is too single and the equity is relatively dispersed. If it encounters the impact of large capital, it's hard to stop. Gwen made an impartial evaluation. How does it compare with Jerome's intelligence? Lin Lai couldn't help but think of Jerome Zeely. PFF'd. There is no comparison between the two. Gwen couldn't help but smile and said. Jerome intelligence is much better than Osborne. Whether it is technological level, company structure, or development potential, Jerome intelligence can crush Osborne. However, Jerome intelligence is not without its shortcomings. If Jerome Lin dies, the entire Jerome intelligence will collapse. Because his personal abilities are too outstanding. Quote. Understood. When Lin Lai heard someone praising his cousin, he felt as if he had drunk honey, as if he was praising himself. It seems that I have to study hard and not embarrass Brother Sheng. When Lin Lai made up his mind, the students had almost arrived. Everyone got on the school bus again and drove in the direction of Osborne Enterprises. There are many biological experimental groups in Osborne Enterprises, and they have deep cooperation with Empire State University. I was an intern in the experimental group of Professor Kurt Connors, a professor at Empire State University. Quote. In the car, Gwen was very familiar with Osborne Enterprises and tirelessly introduced relevant information about Osborne Enterprises to the others. So Gwen, are you planning to go to Empire State University in the future? Peter asked suddenly. If nothing else, yes. Gwen nodded, then looked at Peter with a smile. What about you, Peter? And Ned, Lin, Cheng, you guys? Me. I should go to Empire State University too. Peter scratched his head, his face slightly red. Peter and I will never be separated, and I am heading towards Empire State University. Ned hooked Peter's shoulder. If Chung and I, we might go to Harvard University. Lin Lai said. I want to go to the School of Biology at Harvard University, and Chung wants to go to the business school. That's not bad. We all have a bright future. Gwen laughed. The 5 people talked and laughed and arrived at Osborne Tower. This building is so cool. After getting off the car, many people made a sound of surprise when they saw the majesty of Osborne Tower. It would be great if I could work here in the future. One girl fantasized. TCH. The share price of Osborne Group has been plummeting recently. I heard that someone wants to deal with them. Maybe there will be no Osborne anymore. Immediately some classmates poured cold water on her. That's right. If you want to go, you should go to Jerome Intelligence. That's where scientists should stay. Someone said. Okay. Shut up and get in. The trainee teacher led a group of high school students into the building in front of them. Oh, everything is so cool. Looking at the various fresh devices around them, many students made a sound of surprise. Even Peter couldn't help but take out his camera and want to take pictures of the surrounding instruments. Sorry, no photography allowed here. At this moment, a hand stopped in front of Peter. Peter looked up, and a kind smiling face appeared in front of him. Professor Connors. Gwen immediately stepped forward in surprise and introduced to everyone. This is my internship supervisor, a full professor at Empire State University, Professor Kurt Connors. Professor Connors is the most powerful biological expert in Osborne Enterprises. He is second to none in the world in reptile research. Today's internship is led by Professor Connors. The trainee teacher also introduced the identity of Professor Connors to everyone. That's right. Don't look at me as a disabled person, but I am also a scientist. Professor Connors smiled slightly and showed off his severed limbs indifferently. But only a few people know that this is Professor Connors' lifelong pain and how much he wants to grow his arms. Professor Connors took a group of students to visit his laboratory and introduced some advanced science and technology. Time is also passing slowly. Lin Lai, Achung and others did not feel bored, but found it very interesting. Let me tell you, it is indeed more interesting than teaching in China. By the way, this is a new research I did. Just like Parkinson's patients, who watch with fear that their bodies are gradually losing control, or patients who suffer from macular degeneration, whose vision is getting darker and darker, I am also eager to repair it. I want to create a world where there are no weak people. Can anyone guess how this can be achieved? If the answer is correct, I will give him a small reward. Of course, I will also personally write good comments on his internship report. Quote. Professor Connors was affable and suddenly asked everyone a question. Stem cells. Everyone thought for a while, and then a girl spoke. There is hope, but I'm sorry, the method I thought of is more thorough. Professor Connors shook his head. Mechanical ascension. Replace whatever you lose. One student said. As soon as these words came out, everyone started laughing, and Professor Connors couldn't help but laugh. It's cross-species genetics. Once the dopamine-producing brain cells start disappearing, people develop Parkinson's disease. But zebrafish have the ability to regenerate this kind of cells. If you can find a way to give this ability to patients, the patients can cure themselves. Quote. At this moment, a voice came. Professor Connors suddenly showed a look of surprise. Correct answer. Who is it? The people in front of Peter consciously stepped aside. Peter Parker. He is second in our class, after me. Gwen also immediately said happily to Professor Connors. But she is still a little Tsunere. Great. Peter Parker, right. I remember the name. Wait, I'll ask my assistant to give you those little rewards. Professor Connors smiled and was about to say something, but the cell phone in his pocket rang. Connors frowned slightly, and then showed an apologetic expression to the students. I'm very sorry, I have something to resolve at work. You should visit with Gwen first, since Gwen is very familiar with this place anyway. Quote. Professor Connors pushed Gwen in front of everyone, and then hurriedly returned to his office. Looking at Professor Connors walking away in a hurry, Gwen was speechless for a while. However, she quickly took over the right to speak and took the rest of the people to continue visiting Osborne Enterprises. This is a microbiology laboratory. It conducts research on bacteria and viruses. It is very dangerous. It is best not to go in. This is a biological weapons laboratory. It is a private place and you cannot enter it at will. And here is. Don't visit here, leave now. While Gwen was making introductions, a man stopped in front of everyone with an unkind expression. The man was obviously of Indian descent and looked unattractive. Behind him, there was an Asian man who looked like a scientist. Drive Isaka, let's go in. After scolding Gwen, the Indian man changed his expression and said to the Asian man. Okay. The Asian man named Isaka nodded and glanced at the students. Not sure what was going on, Peter, Lin Lai, and Achung suddenly felt a cold aura and couldn't help but shudder. Wait, the symbols on that document. But Peter was suddenly shocked when he saw a symbol on the document held by the Indian man. He had seen this symbol among his father's belongings. What does my father have to do with them? Peter's heart trembled, full of doubts. Let's go first. Gwen curled her lips and left with her classmates. The Indian, named Nels, is an executive of Osborne Enterprises. The Asian next to him is a man named Isaka, an expert hired by Osborne Enterprises with a high salary. Gwen introduced the identities of the two people just now, but Peter used urine escape to escape from the team. He secretly followed the Indian man and Dr. Isaka and watched them arrive at the door of a secret room. After the Indian man entered the password to open the door, Peter wrote down the password at a glance. Peter was waiting outside the door. After a few minutes, the Indian man came out with Dr. Isaka, along with two researchers wearing research uniforms. The documents in my hand are missing. Did they put them inside? Peter narrowed his eyes slightly, came to the door, and entered the password. He slipped in and found that it was actually a spider breeding base. But the spider inside seems to have been genetically modified. Every spider's body exudes faint fluorescence. Peter couldn't help but be drawn to them, as if he was meant to be drawn to them. He couldn't help but stretched out his hand and groped for the spider silk in front of him. These spider silks are tough and powerful. Several threads are twisted into one, and they have the tensile strength and hardness of steel wire. Peter tightened his grip. Beep. The alarm sounded immediately. There seems to be something wrong with the greenhouse where spiders are cultivated. Then one spider fell from the sky and landed on him. Hiss. Peter felt a pain on the back of his neck, clearly feeling like he had been bitten by a spider. He didn't care about anything else and hurriedly came out of the greenhouse. But the moment he opened the door, a big hand grabbed him. Drive Isaka. Peter looked at the Japanese man in front of him and exclaimed. He didn't expect that he would cause trouble and be caught by the other party. Are you okay? But to Peter's surprise, Dr. Isaka didn't blame him, but asked him. No, it's okay. Peter forced a smile. That's good. Isaka let go of Peter's hand and said. Of course, if something happens, don't panic. You can contact me. This is my business card. Isaka handed a business card to Peter. Okay, thank you, Dr. Isaka. Peter nodded immediately, put the business card away, and returned to the team without looking back. Watching Peter leave in a panic, a mysterious smile appeared on Isaka's lips. What's going on, Dr. Isaka? At this moment, Nels, an Indian executive, heard the alarm and rushed over quickly. It's nothing, there is a small problem in the laboratory, let the researchers solve it. Isaka did not report on Peter. Well, Mr. Osborne is waiting for you. Although Nels had some doubts, he did not undermine Isaka. Because Isaka is now the popular person in front of Norman Osborne, and I don't know why Norman values Isaka. Okay, I understand, please bring someone to tidy up this place. Isaka patted Nels on the shoulder, then got on the elevator and came to Norman Osborne's office. What? You have something to do with me. Isaka closed the door tightly with his backhand and looked at Norman on the desk in front of him. He couldn't see any respect. It seemed that the other person was not simply his boss. You can take off your disguise in front of me. I hate your disguise. Norman Osborne looked at Isaka and said expressionlessly. It seems that the relationship between the two is not as good as Nels imagined. But pretending is obviously what every human being likes to do the most. Don't you like pretending too? After listening to Norman's words, Isaka smiled meaningfully, looked at him and said. What am I pretending to be? Norman raised his head and looked at Isaka coldly. You pretend to be a normal person every day. Isn't this tiring? Isaka didn't pay attention to Norman's tone, smiled slightly, sat on the chair opposite Norman, and lay down comfortably. Do you think you have seen through me? Isaka. You undead creatures can never understand humans. This is why you lost the extreme battle. Norman Osborne smiled contemptuously. You look down on me so much, aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Isaka's expression suddenly changed, but a cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. An energy arrow that resembled a peacock tail feather immediately came to the center of Norman's eyebrows. Norman felt an overwhelming killing intent, as well as the dense killing intent emanating from the energy tail feathers. If you can, then kill me. Norman was not afraid of Isaka's threat. You pretend to be a human just because you want to win this extreme battle. You cooperate with me for this reason. If you kill me, there will no longer be any hope of winning the extreme battle. Although you are not afraid of me, but are you afraid of the Kamen riders and the human army? Why are you so serious? You know, I was just joking. The coldness on Isaka's face disappeared instantly, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, as if it was just a performance. He smiled and said, since you know that I want to win the ultimate battle, do you still dare to cooperate with me? Aren't you afraid that humans will become ornamental creatures like peacocks from now on? With Osborne's current situation, there is nothing I wouldn't dare to cooperate with. Norman was calm and composed. Exploration Aerospace and Hammer Industries are working together. A large number of shareholders of Osborne Enterprises have announced their divestment. There are still 20 days left. If I cannot develop new products and regain the favor of the military, the entire Osborne Enterprises it will go bankrupt and be acquired by Discovery Aerospace and Hammer Industries. If Osborne is gone, what's the point of the world's existence? Quote. Norman's eyes flashed with extreme chill. I don't understand you humans. Looking at Norman Osborne, Peacock Undead Isaka just smiled and said. Anyway, what I promised you will be completed as soon as possible. What you promised me, you must also speed up. Understood. I will. Norman Osborne nodded expressionlessly. The two looked at each other and knew that the other had no good intentions, but at this moment, the two could only choose to cooperate. Peter, what's wrong with you? You look so bad. The other sighed. Peter returned to the student team, but there were a series of abnormalities in his body. This abnormality was keenly caught by Lin Lai, so he asked with concern. No, it's nothing. Maybe I had a bad stomach from lunch. There was obviously cold sweat on Peter's face, and his face was a little pale. But he managed a smile and signaled to everyone that he was fine. I'm going back first. I've finished my internship class anyway, right? We'll send you off. Lin Lai said enthusiastically. No. I can do it myself. Peter rejected the kindness of Peter, Ned and others. He also smiled at the worried Gwen and immediately turned around and left. He didn't care about anything, took a taxi, returned home, and went straight to the bed to lie down. He lay on the bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep, but his body kept twisting and sweating, and his expression was always distorted, as if his body was undergoing drastic changes. And just when Peter's body changed, he was on the other side of New York City. Dave Leshevsky sat among the rubble, looking up at the sky. Below the ruins was where his home once was. Dave hasn't gone anywhere these days because there is no reason for him to go anywhere. About a year earlier, Dave had experienced profound grief when his mother passed away from an illness, leaving him depressed. And now his only relative, his father, died in front of him. Not only that, but his two good friends, Todd and Marty, also died in the undead attack. No one knows how sad Dave is in his heart at this moment. We are bound to lose the people we love, otherwise how would we know how much they mean to us? Dave couldn't help but think of what he said in the novel, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, that he once read. Am I not qualified to be a hero when I want to be one? Dave couldn't help but think of what Lin Wusheng said to him that day. He was subconsciously a little unconvinced, but he vaguely felt that what Lin Wusheng said was right. But my dream is to become a hero. If I don't become a hero, what other dreams do I have? Dave was very confused. After all, he was just a 16-year-old adolescent. What? Just as Dave was thinking, there was a scream not far away. Dave looked over immediately. A terrifying-looking gray-white monster suddenly appeared in front of the personnel of the Urban Reconstruction Department. It's Aoife Enoch. Dave exclaimed and learned the name of this monster through some news. What happened to me? What have I become? Are you the one who caused it? Scorpion Aoife Enoch was so excited that he started to move his hands towards the reconstruction workers in front of him. He was also an unlucky guy. When the army was bombing, he was preparing to take advantage of the panic caused by the undead to steal, but he was buried directly under the building. After he woke up, he was buried under the ruins of the building. Even if he turned into Aoife Enoch, he could not escape. Until today, urban reconstruction personnel uncovered the ruins layer by layer and finally saw his existence. However, the scorpion Aoife Enoch unexpectedly found that he had turned into a monster. An invisible rage appeared in his chest, pushing everything that happened to him onto the several people in front of him, and began to massacre. Under the hands of Enoch the Scorpion, several urban reconstruction workers had no ability to resist and were quickly killed one by one. The rest of the urban reconstruction workers were running away, shouting for help. How to do. Looking at the scene in front of him, Dave was also frightened out of his mind. He especially likes reading superhero comics and imagines that one day he can become a superhero in them. able to help others, able to defeat evil enemies and save the world. But at this moment, when the real danger came, Dave felt that his hands and feet were not in control. I didn't even have the courage to shout, "Stop." Because he knows rationally that this is the real world, not comics. He was no match for that monster of Enoch. He is not a superhero, but a very ordinary, basically useless high school student. Dave is disappointed in himself. When you want to be a hero, you are not qualified to be a hero. Lin Wusheng's words kept ringing in his ears. Can I really just become a waste? How much he wanted to prove to Lin Wusheng that he could be a hero. Okay. But he couldn't take a step or open his mouth. He watched helplessly as one person after another died in front of his eyes. Indifferent and powerless. He is such a waste, so mediocre. No. I'm not that kind of waste. Dave's eyes were wet, tears and snot flowed out from his nose. He was crying and roaring, and strode towards the scorpion Ifa Enoch not far away. I can do it, I can do it. I'll prove it to my father, I'll prove it to Todd and Marty. I'll prove it to Mr. Jerome. A new power suddenly emerged in Dave's body, and his eyes slowly became like a wild beast, and he fiercely rushed towards the scorpion Ifa Enoch. Bang! Dave's sharp claws struck hard on the back of Enoch the scorpion, knocking him staggering. Monster, die! The wolf Ifa transformed into Dave looked up to the sky and howled in Enoch, venting his inner unwillingness on the opponent. The sharp claws kept clawing at the body of the scorpion Ifa Enoch. There is no fighting skill, all he fights for is his raw feeling. Aren't you a monster too? Why are you scolding me? Enoch the scorpion was a little unconvinced when he was scolded by Dave. He steadied himself and tried to fight back. But he was surprised and desperate to find that even though they were both monsters, his power was crushed by Dave. The poisonous needle he shot from his head was so subtle, but the other party dodged it nimbly. The opponent's sensitivity and reaction speed were obviously an order of magnitude higher than his. Fake. I don't accept it. In the end, Enoch the scorpion turned into a ball of sand and disappeared after being violently beaten by Dave. What? And Dave once again looked up to the sky and roared, seeming to prove himself. I just said I can do it. Dave was very proud, but he quickly calmed down and seemed to notice something was wrong. Because he obviously saved these people, but the eyes of the other people looked at him with fear, and then they ran away screaming. Wait a minute, I seem to have turned into a monster too. Only then did Dave realize that he had also become a monster, and then he defeated the scorpion Ifa Enoch. Dave was immediately at a loss, and even more terrified. He has become a monster, no one from the authorities will come to catch him, right? The monster is out there and it almost killed us. And just then, not far away, Dave saw a group of police officers with live ammunition walking towards him under the leadership of several officers. Wait, I'm not a monster. No, I am a monster, but didn't I just save you? When Dave saw the police arriving, he quickly explained anxiously. In the United States, the fear of police inspection seems to have been deeply ingrained in everyone's heart. The two policemen didn't care so much. Instead, they raised their guns and fired directly at Dave. The bullet hit Dave's body. Although there was no damage, Dave still felt pain. He bared his teeth and ran away. And the police have called for backup. An armed helicopter came quickly from the sky, and 30mm bullets were fired at Dave at high speed. Dave fled in panic, but was chased and intercepted by more police. You have arrested the wrong person. Dave also wanted to explain, but all he got in response were bullets. After experiencing several monster attacks, the New York Police Department has already formulated a strategy of subduing first and then talking. If the captured target unfortunately dies, there is no punishment. Ifa Enoch was a person who should have died long ago. Catch it, don't let it escape. Either catch it or let it become a corpse. George Stacy in the sky looked at Dave's escaping figure and gave cold orders. He hated these monsters so much that he wanted to kill them all. Oops. While Dave was running, he couldn't help but stop. Police cars blocked his way not far away, and the police had set up heavy weapons at the intersection, as if they were determined to catch him. Dave broke out in cold sweat for a moment, his brain was running at high speed, but he didn't know how to escape. Consider yourself lucky if you meet me. Seeing Dave at the end of his rope, a figure quickly fell from the sky. Bang! The pair of huge shrimp claws directly shattered the thick concrete floor. The underground water suddenly gushes out. Follow me. Lobster Aoife Enoch grabbed Dave, who was dazed on the spot, and took him into the sewer. He disappeared from everyone's eyes in the blink of an eye. Fake. In the armed helicopter in the sky, George Stacy slapped the door of the aircraft angrily. After all this effort, the opponent still managed to escape. George felt powerless for a while. Starting with Missy Kallenbach, it seemed that he could never successfully capture this monster named Aoife Enoch. And when George was angry, Dave felt like the world was spinning, and his whole body was being pulled forward in the underground water system. Finally, we arrived at a peculiar underground water plant. My goodness. Dave had turned into a human form at this moment, and his whole body was soaked. Lying on the ground panting. But the next second, he couldn't help but breathe heavier. Because a beauty who was also soaked appeared in front of him. Dave swore that he had never seen such a beautiful woman. The other party's blonde hair was flowing with dazzling luster like molten gold, and the strands of blonde hair fell freely like a waterfall, with water droplets dripping from the tip. The eyes are as deep as the sea, and the blue pupils are shining with mysterious light. The soaked clothes clung tightly to her body, showing off her stunning figure comparable to that of a top Victoria's Secret angel. Dave couldn't help but compare the girl he had a crush on, Katie Dixmo, with him. Katie was indeed very beautiful, but compared to the woman in front of him, she was not even a bit inferior. Only now did Dave suddenly realize that someone like Katie could only be considered a girl, but the one in front of him could only be called a woman. What's wrong? Are you dumbfounded? The blonde woman seemed to be very satisfied with Dave's attitude towards her. The corners of her mouth curled up, as if it had touched Dave's heartstrings. Come with me. I want to take you to meet someone. The blonde woman moved her bare feet and her body swayed. Dave swallowed hard and followed her. The two went up from the hidden elevator on the side and came directly to a hall. A girl in a blue uniform suddenly came to the two of them and said hello in a cute way. Welcome back, Ms. Sapphire, and this handsome little guy. Smart Lady's hand gently touched Dave's chest, and Dave took 2 steps back shyly. Okay, Smart Lady, I'm going to take him to see the president. He is my choice. Sapphire Sticks glanced at Dave, as if to confirm, and then nodded. Then he must be a great Aoife Enoch. Smart Lady immediately nodded and said. The president is waiting for you in the office. Just in time, he has also found a potential candidate. Maybe you can give it a try. I understand. This shouldn't be embarrassing for me. Sapphire continued to take steps, while Dave followed closely behind her. In this strange place, the only person who can give him a sense of security is Sapphire. Your name is Sapphire. Dave couldn't help but ask as he smelled Sapphire's hair. The English word for sapphire is saphir. That's right. Sapphire Sticks, does it sound good? Saphir twitched his eyebrows. Sounds good. Dave nodded sincerely, and then continued to ask. What do you mean by the choice you just mentioned? There are also competitions and so on. Do you want me to fight with others? Do you know the Colosseum? You are the gladiator waiting for you. Me. Dave was startled. Haha, I lied to you. Look, I scared you. Seeing Dave's reaction, Sapphire burst out laughing, and then said. You'll know when you arrive. This is a huge opportunity, you have to seize it. What a great opportunity, is it my turn? Dave muttered, but didn't dare to say anything else. With a drum in his heart, he followed Saphir into the elevator, arrived at the next floor, and entered a spacious office. I saw 3 figures in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window. Sitting on the chair was the leader of Aoife Enoch and the president of Janeo Group, Murakami Kiyaji. The other 2 were burly men with tattoos. One looks like a gangster and the other looks like a drug addict. The moment they saw Sapphire arriving, their eyes widened. Sapphire, is this the person you chose? It does look like he has a lot of potential. Looking at Dave, Murakami looked up and down for a while, and seemed to see something. He nodded with satisfaction, looked at the 2 men brought by him to one side, and said. However, Lucky Clover, there are only 4 people. You take 1, and Kataki takes 1, leaving only 2 vacancies. And here, there are 3 new eunuchs. Then let's compete in the last game. Let's see who has the strongest ability. But the man who looked like a drug addict looked at Dave, with the corners of his mouth raised in a disdainful smile. What he despised the most was characters like Dave who looked like good kids. Do you want to choose this way? Murakami Kier thought about it, nodded, and said. That's okay. After all, the purpose of Lucky Clover is to choose the best guard for the king. The three of you have a competition, and whoever wins will be the new Lucky Clover member. Hey, stop for a second. Dave looked at everyone speechlessly and asked Sapphire. Who are you and what do you want me to do? Stop being the Riddler and tell me everything. After all, I have just become Orphenic. What a cute boy. Sapphire smiled and gently hooked Dave's chin with his index finger. You have awakened and become a high-level creature, Aoife Enoch. Do you know? Little guy. I know. But there is nothing advanced about Enoch, right? Turning into a monster, is it really advanced? Only Batman and Superman are considered advanced, right? By the way, the current Kamen Rider is also advanced of. Dave is still dreaming of his superhero dream. Watch your words. After hearing Dave's words, Saphir's expression suddenly changed. He loosened his fingers, the temptation on his face disappeared, looked directly at Dave, and said coldly. Aoife Enoch is a creature more advanced than human beings, there is no doubt about it. Don't be bound by your past. You are no longer a human being, but an Orpheus Enoch. I hope you can understand your identity clearly. Quote. Seeing Dave lower his head, Sapphire continued. This is the headquarters of Aoife Enoch, an organization established by our president, the one who founded it. Our goal is to resurrect the king of Aoife Enoch. Resurrection of King Orpheus and Enoch. Do we still have a king? Isn't this modern society? Dave asked weakly. Stupid. Aoife Enoch has a limited lifespan, but by resurrecting the queen, you can gain a longer lifespan and more powerful power. Moreover, the king will also lead us, Aoife Enoch, to completely conquer the earth and make Aoife Enoch the master of the earth. Quote. Sapphire said seriously. So finding and resurrecting King Aoife Enoch is our top priority. The lucky four-leaf clover is specially set up for this purpose, as the guardian of King Aoife Enoch. Quote. Then it can't be set up as a lucky five-leaf clover. Do we have to have a fight? Dave complained. He didn't want to fight that addict, who looked taller than him and must have more fighting experience. Resources are limited. Only the strong deserve to enjoy the most and best resources. Murakami Gorge spoke at this time. He looked at Dave with admiration on his face. Your name is Dave, right? Your words made me aware of your intelligence. This is a good thing, we Aoife Enoch need wise men. However, what you have to do now is to prove yourself first. As an Orpheus Enoch, one should not be afraid of fighting. Quote. But, Dave scratched his head, not knowing what to say. Boy, you're not afraid anymore, are you? When the drug addict on the side saw this scene, he said provocatively. If you are scared, just go home and hide in the arms of your parents and cry. Ha ha ha. Home, mom and dad. Upon hearing these two words, Dave's face suddenly tightened. There was a different kind of aura about him. He looked at the addict and said, I have no home and no parents. So, please take back your words. Dave's whole body became cold and his fists were clenched. Seeing his appearance, Murakami Kier's eyes lit up, and Sapphire couldn't help but lick her lips with her tongue. Then you are an orphan. Ha ha ha, then you are indeed quite suitable to be Batman. Originally looking at Dave's serious expression, the addict was still a little wary. But after seeing Saphir's expression towards Dave, the addict immediately wanted to show off in front of Saphir and laughed at Dave. He wants Sapphire to know what a real man is. You will regret what you said. Dave gritted his teeth, looked at the addict, and his body suddenly transformed into the wolf Aoife Enoch. Humph. Who is afraid of who? The addict soon turned into an Enoch, like a prairie ground sloth. The claws on his hands were long and sharp, and his palms were like door panels, showing his extraordinary wrist strength. His body is larger than the wolf Aoife Enoch transformed into by Dave, giving people a strong sense of oppression. This is his form of Aoife Enoch the sloth. Leave this place to them. Murakami Kier and Sapphire stepped aside, preparing to watch the competition between the two. As for the other man dressed as a gangster, he looked like he was watching a good show. Anyway, there were two spots, and he was sure that he was strong enough to get one, because he defeated the addict easily. But he was still somewhat interested in Dave fighting with drug addicts. Let's start. Accompanied by Murakami Kyoji's order. The addict suddenly roared and rushed towards Dave. When he ran, the entire floor seemed to be shaking, like a tank sprinting. Judging from the momentum, it is indeed stronger than the scorpion Ifa Enoch that Dave defeated. This was the first time that Dave had turned into Ifa Enoch and fought with someone while he was sober. He would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous. But when he thought of the other party insulting his parents, Dave was filled with resentment and wanted to vent it out. With a wolf-like wild light in his eyes, he also rushed towards the sloth Ifa Enoch. Boom! The two collided, just like two cannonballs colliding, creating a wave of air that spread towards the surroundings. For a time, the floor of the office was cracked, and the paper on the desk was blown away by the air waves. However, Murakami Kyoji, Sapphire, and the gangster men were not weak in strength, so they were not affected at all. Instead, the smiles on their lips became even brighter. Little nerd, I'm going to show you what it means to be a real man. The addict shouted and waved his door-sized palm towards Dave. Especially the 50-centimeter-long claws had a cold light on them, and they looked like they were killing Dave. Feeling the dangerous aura coming from the claws, Dave didn't dare to take it hard, so he turned over and hid to the side. The addict's claws suddenly fell away, leaving several deep marks on the ground. It's quite fast. However, speed is of no use in the face of absolute power. The addict sneered and rushed towards Dave again. Every step he took made the ground tremble a little. But Dave's feet were very strong and he easily dodged the opponent's attack. Are you just going to hide? The addict couldn't catch up with Dave, but spent a lot of energy. He couldn't help but cursed. You idiot, whose parents died, just run away like this for the rest of your life. Have you said enough? Dave suddenly stopped and turned around, his eyes flashing with anger and sadness. What? Are you angry? Then hit me. Ha ha ha. The addict became even more excited when he saw Dave's expression. He laughed and said provocatively. Dave took a deep breath and his eyes changed. His body also began to undergo some slight changes. The muscles on his body seemed to become tighter and his claws became sharper. Swish. Dave's speed was so fast that the sloth Ifa Enoch could not react, and his claws left deep scars on the opponent's body. What? The addict screamed one after another. He didn't expect Dave's speed to be so fast that he couldn't react at all. Dave's claws scratched his body hard again and again, making him feel waves of severe pain. He struggled hard, but couldn't escape Dave's attack. You fool! The addict roared angrily, waving his arms as big as a doorboard vigorously, as if he was hiding a huge amount of power. But Dave's speed was too fast, and he couldn't hit the opponent at all. Boom! 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 Dave's claws fell on the addict's body again and again. His body was covered with scars, and he fell to the ground in a state of disgrace. That's enough. The outcome has been decided. At this moment, a shout came out. Murakami Kyoko came over, looked at Dave, and said with satisfaction, Dave, congratulations. From today on, you are a member of the Lucky Four-Leaf Clover. You can enjoy the most high-end resources in the entire Ifa Eneli. Most of Ifa Enoch must obey your orders. Quote. Hearing Murakami's words, Dave was stunned for a moment, and then stepped on the sloth Ifa Enoch's chest. You are not qualified to tell me how to be a man. Because you are just a waste. Dave twisted his feet hard before letting go of the sloth Ifa Enoch. Thank you. Dave nodded towards Murakami Kier and said. No need to thank me. If you want to thank me, just thank yourself. Murakami Kyoji smiled and said, you have proven yourself with your own strength. However, you have to remember that this is just the beginning. The road ahead is still long. That's great. I want to fight you. Not here, but in bed. And Sapphire came to Dave. She transformed into the lobster Ofe Enoch and stuck together with the Ofe Enoch that Dave had transformed into. Gulu. Dave didn't expect that the winner would receive such treatment. He couldn't help but hug the lobster Ifa Enoch's waist. The sloth Ifa Enoch and the gangster men on the side were a little jealous, but they didn't expect Dave to be treated like this. Don't stage an Austrian movie here. The ambiguous atmosphere between the two was interrupted by Murakami, who quietly pointed to the door. Look, there are still minors. Everyone looked towards the door. At some point, a handsome young man was leaning in front of the door, watching the actions of Dave and Sapphire with interest. He looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. His hair was long and slightly curly. He was wearing a t-shirt that exposed most of his shoulders. He looked extremely pure and harmless. Hey, what are you doing? It seems interesting. The young man looked at Dave and Sapphire with a smile and couldn't help but ask. He didn't know if it was Dave's illusion or something, but he felt that the moment he saw the boy, Sapphire's body actually trembled, as if he was afraid of the boy. Kitasaki, you came just in time. I have a task for you. Seeing the young man's arrival, Murakami Kyuji stood up immediately and seemed to respect the young man. Oh, is he the last member of the Lucky Clover? As long as I defeat him, I can still join the Lucky Clover, right? On the other side, the sloth Ifa Enoch climbed up from the ground and looked at Kataki. Such a weak-looking existence must not be very strong at all. Murakami Kier and Sapphire were immediately speechless when they heard what the sloth Ifa Enoch said. But before they could speak, Kataki spoke first. He showed a bright smile, with surprise in his eyes, looked at the sloth Ifa Enoch, and said, "Really? Do you really want to play with me? Oh, little brat, do you want to play so much? Then I will accompany you. After losing, you can't go to your parents to complain." The sloth Ifa Enoch was ready to attack, but took one step. Bang! A pair of sharp claws pierced his chest directly. Why so fast? The sloth Ifa Enoch fell to the ground, and his body turned into gray sand. I didn't even try hard. Kataki muttered, feeling very aggrieved. Seeing the scene where the sloth Alfei Enoch was killed instantly, Murakami Kyuji and Sapphire were fine, but Dave and the gangster on the side shrank their pupils and showed solemn expressions. This young man actually killed the sloth Ofei Enoch instantly just by showing some of the characteristics of Ofei Enoch in his body. Okay. Someone will clean up everything here later. Kataki, this is your task. You must deal with these 3 traitors in time. By the way, take these 2 people with you. They are your new colleagues. With a flick of Murakami's arm, 3 photos came into Kataki's hands. As Kataki looked at it, the photo quickly turned into sand. I got it. I'll take care of it. Kataki nodded, seeming to have the goal in mind. He looked at Dave and the gangster on the side with interest. Hey, you are my new colleagues. Hello. Kataki stretched out his hand to the gangster and Dave. Hello. The gangster man immediately took Kataki's right hand. But the moment he held it, his expression suddenly changed. A sharp pain came from his hand. Sand keeps falling on his hands. This is the constant desertification of his muscles and skin. The gangster man retracted his hand in fear. There was cold sweat all over my head. He had a feeling that if he didn't take back his hand in time, he would probably turn into sand. Haha. I was deceived, you idiot. Kataki laughed happily because the prank was successful. The gangster man lowered his head and dared not speak out in anger. Okay, Kataki, stop teasing them. Go and take action, we haven't had decent teaching for newcomers since Robert died. Lucky Clover is our most important organization. Please teach them what Lucky Clover should do. Quote. Murakami Kyuji stopped Kataki from wanting to continue playing around. Okay. I'll take you to have fun, and train. Kataki looked at Dave and the gangster, obviously smiling brightly, but the 2 of them always felt very uncomfortable. Is this the power of the sealing stone? It's incredible. Stark Industries is located in a weapons research base in the suburbs of New York. Lin Wusheng looked at the card in front of him with the 2 of spades slashing the lizard, showing a look of surprise. Tony Stark, King Lu Boshi and others also looked amazed. With the participation of the Jerome research team led by Lin Wusheng, the secrets of the sealing stone are gradually being revealed. Everyone even extracted a trace of the power of the sealing stone. This power quickly absorbed the surrounding materials and formed a card. Then at the suggestion of King Lu Hiroshi, Lin Wusheng used the power of Kamen Rider 01 to beat the lizard undead into a stagnant state, then threw the card at the opponent, and finally got a card with patterns and words. This card is exactly the same as the card Lu Boshi released in the Middle East at that time. Tony and Dr. Ethan looked at the cards and thought slightly. However, we have never been clear about why there is a pattern similar to playing cards on this one. Does it represent the suit of spades, or does it mean something else? The formation of the card relies on the power of the sealing stone. Lin Wusheng said. Extract the power from the sealing stone, and it will automatically absorb the surrounding materials and form a blank card. This kind of card has the ability to seal these undead creatures, but why unique patterns and text are formed on the blank card requires careful study. Quote. There are 52 undead creatures in total. If there is no need for kings and kings, they will just form a deck of playing cards. Tianwang Lu Boshi also spoke. I remember that the undead creature named Shima Noboru told me that undead creatures also have differences. Low-level undead creatures are not very intelligent and can only speak some simple words. High-level undead creatures can take the form of humans and possess relatively high intelligence. But I don't know how to divide it specifically. He gave me a lizard undead card and left. Quote. It would be great if we could find this undead creature named Shima Noboru. Lin Wusheng touched his chin, but his eyes shone with light. I still have a few undead creatures there, let's bring them over for study. Maybe we can discover the secrets hidden in the undead creatures. Okay. It depends on what happened to the undead creatures over there after they were sealed. Tony said. If it were really a deck of playing cards, I would doubt the evil intentions of this god. That's right. There are many theories about the origin of playing cards. One is that in the Song dynasty of China, a game called leaf play was born. Later, Marco Polo brought it to Europe and it became playing cards. The second is the European origin theory. Playing cards were originally used as tarot cards for fortune telling. The spades represent the sword, symbolizing thinking, reason, judgment and action. The square piece represents the pentacle, symbolizing career, wealth and material foundation. The red heart represents the Holy Grail, symbolizing emotion, sensibility, intuition and transcendence. The plum blossom represents the scepter, symbolizing willpower, action, leadership and power. Quote. Tianwang Lu Boshi said quickly. Sword, pentacles, Holy Grail, scepter. It's interesting. Lin Wusheng's eyes lit up, as if he had an idea. What? Did you get any inspiration? Tony looked at Lin Wusheng's expression and couldn't help but ask. This is the intuition of a fellow genius. That's right. I was thinking that if I made a new Kamen Rider, maybe I could call them these 4 names. Lin Wusheng nodded, looked at Tony, and asked curiously. That's right. The Iron Man who has recently been quelling wars in war-torn areas such as the Middle East and Southeast Asia is you, right? It's me. Tony nodded. But there was no proud expression. After returning to New York, he did not indulge in eating, drinking and having fun every day. He also continued to upgrade his mark armor. But no matter how he upgraded, no matter how he helped others, he always felt like he was living in Lin Wusheng's shadow. The other party's words of, I am the locust man, in front of many media and millions of people actually made Tony feel jealous in his heart. He had a feeling that Lin Wusheng had stolen his limelight. I knew it was you. Lin Wusheng smiled, and then asked. I heard that you have the idea of closing down the weapons department. That's right. This is what Dr. Ethan reminded me. I discovered that the weapons department of Stark Industries manufactures weapons every year, resulting in the death of thousands of people. I thought about my experience in the Middle East and it might not be a bad idea to close the weapons department. And Stark Industries can make money without relying on the weapons department. Quote. Tony nodded. These were all his trusted friends, so there was nothing to hide. But have you ever thought that without Stark Industries, there would be Hammer Industries, Discovery Aerospace, Osborne Enterprises, etc., taking your place? What you close is not the weapons department, but your share of weapons. Quote. Lin Wusheng looked at Tony and frowned slightly. If you close the weapons department, the war will still continue, arms will still be sold, and those people will still be in dire straits. The only thing that changes is that your money goes into the pockets of those companies. Quote. I can only take care of myself, not others. Tony said nonchalantly. And, isn't this the difference between us and them? This is why they can never catch up with the intelligence of Stark Industries and Jerome. Interesting. Lin Wusheng nodded and said. It's up to you. But you have to be prepared. Since my Kamen Rider armor was announced, you have also seen how much pressure the US military and Congress have put on me. Sooner or later, your mark armor will be announced, and sooner or later, the pressure will come to you. Quote. There is always a solution to a problem. Tony curled his lips, but still focused on the undead card in front of him, with a surprised expression in his eyes. It's really amazing. If this kind of power were analyzed, the world would definitely be shaken. In fact, the world has been shaken by the existence of the undead. The undead are too destructive. What we have to do is to completely seal all the undead. Only in this way can humans continue to win this extreme battle. Tianwang Lu Boshi said firmly. Looking at the expression of Heavenly King Lu Boshi, Tony was a little moved. He knew how much research Tianwang Lu Boshi had done on undead creatures and how hard he worked. He will always support Tianwang Lu Boshi's research. For the sake of mankind, for the sake of Heavenly King Lu Boshi, and to fulfill the obligation of a friend. Soon, the undead creatures such as the halberd and giant pocket insect that Lin Wusheng sealed last time had been transported. Everyone started a new round of research climax. Pepper watched this scene from a distance and couldn't help showing a pleased expression. She knew that they were studying the future of mankind. Fury, my latest research report on Orpheus Enoch has been sent to you. This is some information that Hill obtained at Jerome Tower. I think it is quite useful. A Western-style highway crosses the vast land, like an ancient ribbon, tightly binding this silent and magnificent land. At this moment, a red old sports car is driving on the road. Coulson was talking on the phone, eating a burger, and driving. By the way, I'm going to take a vacation these days. I've been saving up my vacation for more than a month, right? I plan to go to Tahiti for a good vacation. Coulson reported to Nick Fury on his work these days, and a smile appeared on his face. He has been studying content related to Ifa Enoch these days. After all, he almost died at the hands of Ao Fei Enoch twice. If Lin Wusheng hadn't happened to save him both times, he would have become a ball of gray sand by now. Phew. I hope that when I come back from vacation, Ifa Enoch has been dealt a blow. I really don't want to face Ifa Enoch for the third time. Coulson hung up the phone and finished his burger. Coulson felt extremely good at the thought of being able to take a vacation soon. He was driving and enjoying the beautiful scenery of nature. So beautiful. Coulson looked at the wheat fields on both sides and the factory buildings in the distance, and couldn't help but sigh. But suddenly he frowned, as if he saw something unbelievable. He slowed down the car and looked carefully, and then his pupils shrank. I saw a young man sitting on a high factory tower not far away. He just sat on the edge of the tower, his legs dangling playfully outside. There was no safety measure at all. He was looking at the road, as if he was paying attention to something. When he saw Coulson looking at him, he was still smiling and saying hello to Coulson. Oh my god, today's children really don't know how high the sky is and how high it is. Looking at this scene, Coulson suddenly felt worried. He glanced at the tower in front of him. This is obviously a device in an abandoned factory. It is more than 20 stories high. Normal people would feel weak if they stood on it. Coulson turned and looked at the road covered by weeds. There were traces of people walking in it, which was obviously the way the teenager entered. But looking at the traces, it may not belong to just one person. Do these guys think this is a secret garden? Coulson shook his head and drove into the abandoned factory. This time, his car was equipped with bulletproof paint and was not afraid of being scratched by weeds and trees. Finally, he quickly drove to the bottom of the tower. He finally saw what this young man looked like. This is an Asian boy about 15 or 16 years old. He is dressed a little raggedly. His t-shirt exposes most of his shoulders, and his pants and shoes are also old. She looks extremely delicate, but her figure is very thin. Her whole person gives people a harmless feeling. Compared to those American teenagers who take drugs, fight, rob, swear, and do all kinds of bad things, Coulson has reason to believe that the boy in front of him is a completely good boy. But now this good boy has a plain face, sitting on the edge of the tower, looking into the distance. Coulson felt a sense of loneliness from him for no reason. He must have no friends to play alone here. Coulson thought, but sympathy was sympathy, and he still wanted to call the boy down. It's too dangerous to stand on a high tower. Hey, can you come down? Coulson stepped out of the car and shouted loudly under the tower. The young man also heard his cry and actually made a very bold move at this time. He actually looked down the chimney with his head and most of his body, looking at Coulson and saying hello with a smile. Oh my god. This action startled Coulson. If he accidentally fell off the tower due to this action, he would be responsible. Wait, I'll go up first. So Coulson could only muster up all his strength, enter the tower, and climb up the rusty escalator. Gulu. Climbing up the tower, Coulson looked down, feeling a little scared. He didn't know where these teenagers got such courage. What surprised him the most was that there were two other people on the tower. The two people were at the back of the tower, so he didn't see them immediately. You come up here, what are you doing? Coulson's immediate attention was focused on the gangster wearing sunglasses. After all, Kitazaki and Dave are both teenagers with clear faces, and only the gangster guy doesn't look like a good person. The gangster man said nothing, but looked at Kitaki. This time, Kitaki was leading the operation. Hey, uncle, why are you climbing up here? Do you want to play with us? Kitaki looked at Coulson and said with a smile. Seeing Kitaki's expression, the gangster didn't rush to take action. It's not safe to play up here. What are you three doing up there? Coulson only felt that the scene in front of him was a bit strange. Judging from the situation just now, these three people actually acted based on Kitaki's expression. Somewhat unexpected. Haha, uncle, are you concerned about us? What a kind-hearted uncle. However, we don't have time to play with you now. We are on a mission. Kitaki smiled. That's right. Uncle, please get down quickly. We'll be fine. Dave also said to Coulson that the other person had a good guy temperament, and Dave had a good impression of him. He was afraid that Kitazaki or a gangster might suddenly take action against Coulson. Coulson frowned, feeling something was wrong. Look, they are coming. Our mission is about to begin. And just then, Kitaki's eyes suddenly showed an excited expression. The faces of Dave and the gangster also became slightly solemn. And following the gazes of several people, Coulson looked down. I saw a very low-key and old pickup truck driving on the road not far away. This is our mission goal. Come on. Kitaki gave the order and jumped down first. The gangster men immediately followed. Only Dave took a deep breath, seemed to be doing some mental construction, and said to Coulson. Go quickly. You can't participate here. Then jump down again. Coulson looked at the actions of the three people and felt numb. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief. The scene in front of him made him temporarily stop thinking. Three people jumped from a 50 to 60 meter high tower. Not only did nothing happen, but it also made three big holes in the land below. What the hell are these people? Coulson muttered. Thanks for watching.